Mariana White, and as Kathy said, I'm going to be speaking to you guys today about my struggle with an eating disorder and a little bit about my recovery and how I got to where I am today. So I'll begin. The summer going into my sophomore year of high school, right after my parents separated and right before my big sister would head off to college, is where it all began. My family went from being the picture-perfect family to a separate household within the blink of an eye. My sister, who was my best friend, was moving almost 10 hours away and leaving me to deal with the pain of the separation all by myself. Not to mention, my other big sister had already been gone for about 3 years. Everything was changing, and it seemed as though my life had spun out of control, and naturally, I panicked. I couldn't do anything about my parents splitting and my sisters being gone, but the one thing I knew I could control was the way I looked. So I made up my mind, and I told myself I was going to lose 10 pounds by the end of the summer. I would work out numerous times a day on an empty stomach. I would walk into the kitchen and look into the fridge and the cabinets and just wish that I could eat something, but I wouldn't even dare. I waited all day long until dinner time when I could finally eat my first and only meal of the day, and I would devour it within seconds. At this point, I honestly didn't believe there was anything wrong with me. My sister would make small comments about me being anorexic, and I would comment back with, "I'm not anorexic, I eat every day, I never throw up." Little did I know what I was doing to my body. I continued on with this for the rest of the summer, but I told myself as soon as school started, I would go back to being healthy. But before I made it to that point, I found myself laying in the booth at the Waffle House with half of my clothes off, staring up into my mother's eyes filled with fear. We had taken my sister down to school in North Carolina on a 9-hour car ride, and I hadn't eaten a thing. My mom kept trying to get me to eat whenever we stopped, but I just kept saying I wasn't hungry. Once we arrived in North Carolina, I begged for us to go out to eat. I was obviously starving. So we went to the only open restaurant at this hour, the Waffle House. I had been waiting for this meal all day, so I ordered the biggest thing on the menu: pancakes, eggs, sausage, slathered down in syrup. For anyone else, this wouldn't have been a problem. But for me, who hadn't eaten in over 24 hours, it was a complete shock to my body. I immediately felt as if I was going to throw up, and as I attempted to get up, I passed out cold in the middle of the restaurant. I spent the night in the hospital being poked with IVs and being lectured by doctors, and that was the first time I ever thought that maybe I did have a problem. Weeks went by, and it was finally time for school to start again. As I promised myself, I started the new school year off with a new, very impressive physique and an even better attitude. I finally got my life back on track, and I was very happy with how things were going. Sophomore year ended up being great, and then the summertime came again. I didn't plan on going back down that road, but somehow I did. I began running with the cross-country team, which meant over 8 miles a day in the summer, and once again, I wasn't eating anything until late at night. I lost more weight, and I felt pretty good about how I looked. It was honestly one of the best summers I had ever had, besides hiding the fact that I wasn't eating to my family, who were all very concerned and suspicious. The summer ended, and it was junior year, and like last time, I figured I would stop with the bad eating habits and get myself healthy again. Little did I know, I had lost complete control over what I had been doing to myself, and things only got worse. I continued with only eating once a day to begin with, but as time went on, I just wanted to lose more and more weight. I would give myself a goal, but when I reached that goal, I would just set another one. I was never satisfied with my weight. While at school, I wouldn't eat anything. I would drink flavored drinks and chew gum to cut the edge of the hunger. My friends all asked why I wouldn't eat, and I always said, I had a big breakfast, although I knew they never believed me. Then it came to the point where I didn't even want to have my one meal anymore. I just wanted to skip out on eating altogether for a couple of days. The problem with this was getting around my mom. On the days I was at work, I would tell her I brought food to my job or that I ate there, when really I would bring one granola bar, eat it on my break, and that was my breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the day. This went on for a couple of weeks until my hunger would get so bad that I didn't know what to do, and this is where I knew I had completely lost myself. I would come home from school completely exhausted and absolutely starved. I would sit in my kitchen and look at the pantry door for hours, it seemed, until I finally opened it up and stared at all the food. I would start with a spoonful of peanut butter, then eat some nuts, and maybe a Pop-Tart, and then a cookie or a cracker, until I had eaten all types of crappy foods, and I felt like an absolute failure. My only option was to get rid of the horrible mistake I had just made, and that is exactly what I did. Day after day, this would happen. I would raid my cabinet and then gag myself until I thought it was all gone. I hated everything about myself, and I hated who I had become, but there was no turning back. At this point, I had made myself very sick. I was at an all-time low weight. I looked sickly all the time. I was always angry and upset, and I was very unhappy with everything about my life. My mom noticed, and my friends, but I always knew the right things to say to distract them or make them stop talking about it. I had become such a fantastic liar, it seemed. Things were constantly going downhill until I, without a doubt, hit rock bottom. I remember the day like it was yesterday. My sister was home for Christmas, and my mom let me stay home from school so I could hang out with her. My grandma had cooked breakfast for us, so I was stuck in a situation where I was forced to eat something, or somebody would know what was up. So I nibbled on what was on my plate, feeling guilty at the entire time. My sister and I then went to the gym and worked out, and I felt a little better, but I could not get that meal off my mind. So as soon as I had some alone time, I purged myself until I physically could not breathe anymore. I sat on my bathroom floor and just cried. I couldn't believe what I had become. I laid on my bed and something just wasn't right. I felt like I was stuck in a dream and I couldn't get out. It seemed like everyone was out to get me and everyone hated me, and I completely panicked. I called my mom and I told her I needed to talk to her. Immediately she knew something was wrong and she begged me to tell her, but I couldn't do it on the phone. I had never been so scared in my life. I honestly felt like I was lost in my own body. Later that night, I told her that I thought I needed help. I told her I hadn't been eating and I felt like something was wrong. She told me we would wait out the next few days to see if I felt any better, and then we would go to the doctors. 2 days had passed and nothing was changing. I was only getting worse. I woke up one morning and went straight to the gym. My mom called me frantically and said maybe I shouldn't go with how I was feeling, and I told her I had to go. I thought it would make me feel better. So I did cardio and abs and sat in the sauna for a very long time, hoping that I would feel some sense of normalcy, but nothing was working. I drove home in tears, secretly hoping that I would crash before I got there. I went straight to my bed, curled up in my covers, and cried. I was lost. I didn't know who I was or why I was even alive. I didn't know what else to do but cry. My mom finally came in and made me get in the car and took me to the hospital. The whole ride there I cried. It all felt like it wasn't real, and I just kept saying, I just want to be normal again. Once they got me in and ran some tests and asked some questions, the doctors diagnosed me with severe clinical depression, anorexia, and bulimia. My brain was so deprived from the lack of food that I was literally losing my mind. I was extremely sick and very scared. The hospital discharged me, but not to return home, but to receive an assessment test at a depression center for teenagers. A lady asked me questions that seemed pretty stupid and weird to me, and I was not happy. I did not want to be treated there. All I wanted was to be okay again. We returned home, and I cried myself to sleep, once again repeatedly saying, I just want to be normal again. The next day, I started treatment at the depression center named Laurelwood. Right off the bat, I was pissed that I had to be there. I felt like I was crazy, and I was going to be thrown into a room with a bunch of crazy kids, and I was so angry. I sat myself at a table and waited until it was time to begin. We began with introductions in our first group, which was a time we spent every day sitting in a circle and basically sharing our feelings. As soon as people began to talk, I instantly felt relieved. I couldn't believe that there were other people who felt just as hopeless as I did. No one else there had an eating disorder but me, but we were all very similar. We had all lost ourselves, and we felt as though we had no reason to be on this earth. Something I will never forget is that first day of group. As I was waiting my turn, I looked up on the wall and I saw a poster that caught my eye. The words on the poster said, "With hope, anything is possible." As this is now tattooed on my stomach, it really spoke volumes to me. That was the first time I thought maybe I had another chance to make my life worth it. I finished treatment at Laurelwood and made great progress depression-wise. I was feeling much better with the help of a few prescription drugs, and my family members were finally able to smile again. I was finally talking to my friends again, who I completely shut out, and I opened up and told my best friend everything that had happened. I began to eat more, not as much as I should have, but enough to please my mom, and things really seemed to be taking a turn for the better. This all came to an end far too soon. We were back in school, and we had begun indoor track meets. It was the first meet at Kent State, and I was running the 4x200 meter relay. I got no more than 100 meters before my leg completely gave out. I had no clue what had happened, and I was very discouraged. Little did I know, it could have been my heart that gave out. but thank God it was only my leg. Days went by before it was finally time for me to meet with my actual doctor who specializes in eating disorders, Dr. Roan. I was so nervous I could barely talk, and I had every right to be. After listening to my heartbeat, testing my heart rate and pulse, and running an EKG scan, the doctor basically told me I was on the verge of dying. My heart rate was so low that I was ordered to do no more than a walk until I was healthy again. Of course, this meant no trap, which was devastating to me. I thought I had hit rock bottom before, but I didn't know it could happen twice. At the end of my appointment, my doctor recommended me to an eating disorder clinic to start counseling. My therapist was Joanna, and the clinic was called Cleveland Center for Eating Disorders. I can't even begin to explain how much I hated that place for a very long time, but little did I know they were saving my life. The only thing I remember is being told I had to go through refeeding. Refeeding is a process where someone who suffers from an eating disorder must regain all of the weight they lost, whether they like it or not. They aren't allowed to choose what they eat, when they eat, and how they eat. They simply have to follow their parents' rules. Since I was 17 at the time, this meant I was going to have to go along with their torture until I was healthy again. I absolutely hated everyone during this process, especially myself. I was so sick of the brain that I truly thought I was getting humongous, when really I was only gaining 1 to 2 pounds every couple of weeks. It was a slow, painful, heartbreaking process that I never wish upon anyone. I spent days not looking at myself. I would shower in the dark so I wouldn't be tempted to look down. I hated myself more than I ever had before. With my depression taking an all-time high, I was placed on even more medications, which only seemed to help at certain times. I thought I was fat. I wasn't allowed to do the one thing I loved, and I honestly didn't want to live anymore. This is when my depression took a turn for the ultimate worst. I felt so worthless that I didn't believe I should live anymore. I wished and hoped that God would just take me away. When I went to sleep at night, I would say, "I'm ready, just take me." And when I woke up the next morning, a sense of relief, yet disappointment came over me. I just didn't know what to do anymore, so I resorted to self-mutilation. I don't know how it started, but all I know is when it did, I didn't want to stop. Hurting myself took away the pain that I was feeling inside for that brief moment. Hiding my scars from my family and friends were the hardest part. Although parts of me always hoped someone would see, I was desperate for help. After one night, I had been drinking a lot, and I attempted to crash my car on my way home. Once I got home safely, I still didn't want to be alive anymore. I took a large amount of my prescribed sleeping pills, hoping that I wouldn't wake up the next morning. Thankfully, I did, because that was the day I decided to take my life back. I realized that I had so much more in life to look forward to. Outdoor track season was approaching soon, and I wasn't going to let myself miss out on another awesome season with my team. I stopped feeling sorry for myself, and I started to take my life back. I was eating like I was supposed to, and my mood was getting much better. Doctor visits became less painful, and my test results were improving drastically. Slowly, my doctor released me to run again, which was one of the happiest days of my life. I knew that I had to stay healthy, not only for myself, but for my family, who were absolutely amazing and supportive throughout the entire process. Despite the fact that my parents were divorced, they worked together as a team to help me recover, no matter how bad they didn't want to, and for that I will always be grateful. With the love and support of my friends and family, I slowly but surely got back to my prime and track. My team and I had an amazing season, and life finally had meaning again. I finished the season with 2 new relay records and was awarded an amazing award honoring my strength to overcome such battles. I was healthy, my family was happy, and I was finally learning to accept myself. I continued with therapy and doctor visits, and for the most part, I was constantly making progress. Every once in a while, I would fall below the weight they wanted me to be at, and I would feel defeated once again. But with every defeat, I picked myself back up again, and I told myself I was not going back to how I was. My battle with recovery continues on, and will continue for the rest of my life. I have come a very long way from where I was, and I am beyond proud of that. At the beginning of my senior year, I had a bit of a relapse, and my doctor told me that I wasn't going to be able to go off to college. Look where I am now. Almost at the end of my second semester at the University of Mount Union, pursuing a degree in psychology, doing the thing that I love the most, and succeeding at it with an amazing group of people. I easily could have given up at any point, but I didn't, and for that I will forever be proud. For anyone who is or has gone through this, I want you to know that you are not alone. It may be hard, and some days you might not want to go on, but I promise if you just hold on, you can and you will don't make it. And never forget, withhold